Hello, my name is Dr. George Tate. I'm with Orthopedic and Sports Physical Therapy, and here we're at SWAGS with Lainey today, going through some exercises we could do to target our hips when it comes to running using these new Protec bands that they have. So she's going to put this around her ankles, and this first series is going to target the hips. So with running and injuries, a lot of times we see a biomechanical imbalance with the lower extremity. If you have discomfort or pain at your knee or your foot, a lot of times that's the first place that you look, but often in fact it's an imbalance going on at the hips. So with these exercises, you can go through these a couple times and several times a week. It doesn't matter if you're doing it before or after you're running, as long as they're doing them, I think it would be beneficial. So the first one is called a monster walk. She has the band around her ankles and she's staying in a squatted position, keeping tension on the band going forwards. And then she's also going to stop and go backwards. So with this one, as you get tired, you're going to want to point your toes out. So she's doing a good job of pointing her toes forward and keeping tension on the band the entire time. So I like to tell people to do this one for about 25 feet forwards and backwards 3 to 4 times. The next one she's going to face a different direction. And these are just lateral walks. So the same thing, keeping tension on the band. She's stepping with her lead foot and also controlling the trail foot, not letting the band slap her leg quickly. So she's controlling the movement. So same thing here. As she starts to wear out, she's going to let the band bring her legs closer together quicker. She's also going to come out of a squatted position. And she'll do this both directions. You also tend to see people start to lean. These are all just patterns that your body compensates for when they're not looking to use the muscles that we're wanting to address. The next one is called a straight-legged walk. This one she's also going to be keeping her toes forward, her legs straight, as she walks forward, keeping tension on the band. So she's going to go forwards, and then she's also going to stop and then go backwards. As she starts to fatigue, she's going to want to lean forward. So with this one, being aware of how much you're leaning and really just driving back with each leg, just take a step. Make sure she's controlling the band tension throughout. This one is another one using the Protec band. These are called clamshells, and this is again working on hip strength. She's going to have the band around her knees, and from here she's going to keep her feet together and she's just separating her knees. So with this one, your tendency is going to want to roll back as she fatigues. So making sure you stay on that right side if you're working your left hip. This is the first movement. The next movement, she's going to come up, she's going to keep her knee here, and then lifting off, and then coming back down. So this one's a little bit harder, obviously, and as you fatigue, this knee is going to drop this way when she lifts her feet farther apart. So that's another thing to watch out for, along with rolling onto her back when she does these. So start with sets of 10, 2 to 3 sets of 10, working your way up. This is also good for kids to do, especially as they're approaching their teenage years, and even younger than that, because a lot of times we see weakness farther up the chain, especially with shin splints and other lower extremity dysfunctions with running. So this is another one that kids could throw into their routine. And then the final one, she's going to come into a plank. Separating her knees there. Obviously you're going to want to drop your hips when you're doing this. So making sure you're breathing through all of these. This is another variation using the Protec Performance Band. Before you use the band, you could just start in a lying position, and what she's going to be doing is just a bridge. So with this one, she's driving through her heels. That's the cue I like to use as she bridges up and then back down. So with this one, you're going to want to press your hips up as far as you can, and then coming back down. Making sure you're breathing through all of these. Good. And then the next one, you're going to go ahead and bridge up again. Then she's going to march. She's going to, lift one and then do the other. And then back down. Go ahead and give me a couple of those. Then when she's doing this, when she lifts one leg up, the tendency is for your pelvis or your core to drop. So she's really focusing on keeping her pelvis and hips up as she does that. Breathing at the same time. Really driving through your heels as you shift. Good. And then another one you can add is she's going to put the band around her knees. She's going to put her feet all the way together. And she's going to be doing the same thing. She's going to bridge up, and then she's going to separate her knees as far as she can, and then bring them back, and then back down. So with this one, she's going to want to make sure she's keeping her pelvis up and her driving through her hips as she separates her knees, because you're going to want to drop here. So this is another one to start to incorporate some core stabilization. Good to breathe through all of these. If we're not breathing, we're developing other compensatory strategies. Obviously, you breathe when you run. So another one addressing the musculature in the front of your hip. So hip flexors, knee extensors. A lot of times these guys are overworked, and you start to use those muscles in your IT more than you should. So this is another one, just elongating the structures in front. So you'll kneel on the ground. You can put something under this knee for a little bit more comfort. So from here, the first thing she's doing is tucking her pelvis underneath. So when she's in this position, you should feel more of a stretch in the front of that hip. Then from here, maintaining your pelvis tucked underneath, you're going to be rocking or driving your hips forward more. She should feel all in the front of this hip. And then to progress that, she could even lean away from the side, feeling more of a stretch. So I like to do this one for 5 times, 15 to 20 seconds. Another version to stretch your hips, so you can find a chair if you don't want to get down on the floor, or if you just want something more convenient that you can get away with doing during your workday. So here she's doing the same thing, tucking her pelvis underneath her and then driving her hips forward. Keeping the pelvis tucked the entire time so we can make sure we keep elongating the hip flexors on the front of the right side. So again, holding these 15 to 20 seconds, repeating it for about 5 times. But you can't go wrong as long as you're doing them. So here, obviously we want to strengthen your glutes and your hips, because a lot of times if those muscles are weak, we tend to use more of your tensor fasciae lata and your IT band, which is the tendon that connects into this muscle. So while we are strengthening our glutes so this muscle doesn't have to work as hard, we want to make sure we're stretching and getting this muscle to calm down. So here we're going to do an IT band stretch. So to stretch her right side, she's going to be stepping behind her, and she's going to be pointing her toe that direction. And from here, she's going to be bumping her hips towards me. She should be feeling a stretch along here. Is that okay?
Yep.
Yep. You can do this one up against a pole, up against a wall. Same as the other stretches, a handful of times, holding each for about 15 to 20 seconds. You can do this before or after running, and you can do this before or after your hip workouts.
As you saw in the video today with Dr. Tate, we use the Protec Resistance Bands for the exercises. As you progress through the movements, you'll be able to go up on resistance with the bands. This pack comes with 3 different bands. So start off with a light band, and you can progress to the medium band, which is this medium blue, and then you can go with the heavy band, this one here, as you progress through the movement. So definitely take your time. It's important to make sure the movements are correct and you're working and focusing on the muscles that need to be worked on. And you can find these Protec Resistance Bands at both of our locations, the South Store and the East Store.